My question for the Ravens isn't necessarily about the Ravens. It's actually about other teams. It's can other teams adapt to Lamar Jackson this season?
Yeah,
Because I
that's a
know
good
I know
question.
I know a lot of like times like schemes like we had the Rams one year make the Super Bowl and then they seemed, you know, it almost seemed like they faded away last year. And I think one stat that I found really interesting was Jackson is 16-2 when he plays an opposing defense for the first time, and then he's
Hmm.
3-3 in his rematches. I know it's a small sample size, but maybe there's something there. Possibly
Yeah.
not. I think they're still going to be great, and I think it's the fact that one of my biggest questions for them is can other teams handle them? Shows how good they are. But
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, it's a question we've been asked of in the past with the likes of like Robert Griffin III and more effectively Colin Kaepernick when, he was a successful NFL player. And you wondered, will defenses be able to adapt to it? But each time we've had to ask the question of the read option opposite offense, it's been a situation where there's a quarterback even more fit to run it than the last. Like
yeah,
Lamar Jackson is better than Colin Kaepernick. He's better than RG3. So can you stop him? And my question kind of falls along with that, which is how does Jackson follow up his MVP season? That's my question. And, you talk about, will defenses be able to handle it? My question is, if there is a defense that learns how to handle it, is Lamar Jackson ready to run a more traditional styled offense where he has to just step back and make some passes to open up the box again? So then Ingram, Jackson, and, I guess J.K. Dobbins now can run amok with this new style offense that Greg Roman runs that is really awesome. I mean, really
yeah,
enjoyable to watch.
yeah. I think it would be interesting to see which wide receiver because they didn't play many close games, so we're going to see
Hmm.
who comes in clutch at the end. But the
No,
next team
definitely.
I had was the Steelers. I know it's close to Morgantown. We have way too many Steelers fans around
I
here, the
agree.
most I've ever been around in my life. But to me, it's kind of like, can this team stay healthy / can Big Ben stay on the field? He's only
Yeah.
played 4 times a full season in a 16-year career. He's claiming he's throwing without pain this year and stuff like that. But the biggest stat that I found on them was the Pittsburgh faced the fourth most box defenders in the NFL last year, which obviously
Hmm.
they didn't have a QB basically last year. They
Yeah.
they played with awful QB. So you get that in there, you've got Juju back, James Conner back, hopefully be able to, catapult their team. They had a great defense, and it's just can their offense stay healthy is my question.
Yeah. And my question is really out of all of them, all of my questions on the sport end with a question mark, except for this one. It's more of a statement that I don't know the answer to. And the statement is the floor is a playoff team for the Steelers. The roof, though, is up to Big Ben,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, because this team almost made the playoffs last year with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph at quarterback, lacking James Conner, lacking Juju Smith-Schuster. So this team is built and ready to go. This defense is just as good as it was last year. They're going to terrorize offenses all season long. But can Big Ben return back to old Big Ben form? And can he stay healthy? That's very true. It's a matter of this team could go anywhere from being a wild card team to contending for a Super Bowl if Big Ben comes back and is firing on all cylinders again, which I doubt will happen, but it's still a potential possibility. Other quarterbacks have come back from injury before and have torn it up. Peyton Manning, other examples are out there too.
Yeah, I definitely think they can make the playoffs. I think it is truthful. It's up to Big Ben, and he's old. He's 38 this year, so it's going to be interesting to see that for sure. The next I have is the Browns, and my biggest question for them is can Baker Mayfield basically bounce back? And he threw 21 combined picks last year, and he threw that many picks in all his 3 seasons at Oklahoma. So
Wow.
that's pretty.
Good
It's
pick.
it's a different life for him he experienced last year. And then I've got 2 more stats, and I'll leave my favorite one for last. But when targeting Beckham and Landry, Mayfield tallied 10 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. So I think he's got to spread that ball out way more this year. And I think if he does that, he can bounce back. But my favorite stat, and you'll see why it's my favorite stat a little bit later on in it. But Mayfield had 15 interceptions from a clean pocket, and
Oh
only
dear.
3 other QBs in the PFF database have ever thrown more in a single season. One was Jameis Winston last year.
All
One
right.
was Brett Favre in 2006. And then my favorite stat, Eli Manning did it 3 times in 2007,
Yeah.
in 2010, and 2013.
There
So
you go.
yeah. So I snuck in the Eli Manning hate less than
There you
10 minutes
go.
into the pod.
There you go. It'll be the first of many. We'll have to
Yeah.
count up an Eli Manning hater count here. No, Baker Mayfield isn't playing Big 12 defenses anymore. That's incredibly evident in his time in the NFL. And I think it's very easy to go to looking at him to see what the season looks like. You've got the talent on defense. You've got weapons on offense. You've got a quarterback who, in his rookie year, showed flashes of maybe being the guy for the franchise. And then last year, threw 15 interceptions when targeting 2 different guys. Like it goes to, and he did it with clean pocket in mind. Like it goes to show you that he's been struggling. And my thought is, I tried to twist it outside of Baker Mayfield and go, how much better is Stefanski going to be than Freddie Kitchens? Because for me last year, it was kind of confounding how much poor Baker Mayfield did throughout the span of the year. And one of the main differences between this past season and the season before that was Freddie Kitchens came in and everything was an organizational mess for the Browns. They were committing penalties. Play calling was questionable a lot of the time. Baker Mayfield started making poor decisions. How much of that falls on Kevin Stefanski and how much of that, or not Kevin, sorry, excuse me, on Freddie Kitchens, and how much is that going to get fixed with Stefanski now at the helm of the Cleveland Browns? We don't really know too much about him. He's not had a very long career in premier coaching positions. He was only offensive coordinator for 2 years in Minnesota, if I remember correctly. And so we don't have a lot to base it off of. So it'll be curious to see how a Stefanski coached football team looks, especially with the amount of talent the Browns have.
Yeah, they've got tons of talent. And last year they were probably the most hyped up team
Oh
easily.
my gosh.
And the hype still died down a lot this year, but I feel like it's going to grow. I could see them getting a hot start and then the hype just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see if the coaching change actually helps Baker and just helps the team in general. But the last team in the AFC North is the Bengals we have. And my question is can they win close games? Basically, last year they're 0-8 in one possession games. And
Yeah.
is Joe Burrow enough to be able to change that? I know you got AJ Brown this year, Zach Taylor's you can be able to scheme it up enough, and Joe Mixon hopefully being healthy and be able to run well this year. But can Joe Burrow put them over that edge where they're winning closer games? I don't expect much of them this year. I doubt we'll talk about them a ton during the year because I have low expectations. I can see us talking about Joe Burrow, but that's my question for them is basically, is Joe Burrow enough to win them close games, which I'm not sure yet because he only had one. We're still up in the air if he's, to me, at least me, is he legit or not? I'm still a little bit slow on him.
Yeah, we'll be curious to see how he faces some adversity this season. Obviously, he has his junior year where he had to struggle with a not as good LSU team as last year's was, but you could definitely still chalk up, is he got that clutch gene? I'm pretty confident in Joe Burrow. I'm not going to say Joe Burrow is the next big man in the NFL, but I think he can really make it in the NFL. My question for the Bengals, I kind of tried to steer away from Joe Burrow just a little bit because of sort of obvious headlines. My question is, Joe Burrow has the pieces, but will the defense allow him to win games? So you went to crunch time on Joe Burrow. My question goes on to the other side of the ball, which is, will the defense actually let him win a football game? Because that roster is in shambles. The defensive line struggled last year. They did add DJ Reader, though. Hopefully he can help them out. The linebacking core is incredibly questionable. You've got a lot of new pieces on that secondary and a bunch of new signees at cornerback who've proven themselves elsewhere. But, a secondary is very dependent on cohesion and on all the pieces fitting together and working well together. So especially in year one of a secondary, it's typically pretty rough. So will the defense make enough stops that make it so that offense, which has a lot of good pieces for Joe Burrow to grow with, will they allow them to win games, or are they just going to be a revolving door and it's just going to be impossible for a rookie quarterback to keep up with whoever they're playing with?
Yeah, because obviously a lot of people are high on Joe Burrow, and
Yeah,
you don't want to see that situation where he's just in a bad situation his whole career, and you're wondering, man, what could this guy have done? We've got like someone like Matthew Stafford. You wonder that question: what could he have done? I don't know. You could argue maybe Sam Darnold. What could he be doing if he was in a better situation?